The National League, 1970. A year baseball's oldest professional team, the Cincinnati Reds, picked up a new label and made it stick.
Never before, not since, has the city of Cincinnati and the Reds seen the likes of George Sparky Anderson. Of all the possible candidates to lead baseball's greatest team, Sparky Anderson had to be the least likely. Anderson had never managed a day in the majors, a baseball backbencher, a lifer, as they like to say in the game. And when he was hired in the fall of 1969, the reaction around Cincinnati was almost universal. Sparky, who? It was a question that was answered almost immediately. Just 36 years old in his first season, Anderson's Reds won 70 of their first 100 games and made it to the World Series. And it quickly got a lot better than that.
Did you fool people? Maybe with your personality, people knew you were a gentleman, a guy to get along with. You kind of, you've kidded about mangling the English language. Do you think maybe you fooled people and you're smarter than maybe a lot of people gave you credit for as a manager?
I'll tell you what, nobody was going to get in the den with me and outsmart me. They better save that. They don't even want to think about coming into the den with me. They got in the wrong house.
That was a toughness.
No, my toughest thing was the fact that I wasn't tough. I knew what I was doing, and I knew what was going on in this clubhouse, and I knew what each player could do and couldn't do, and I know each player that didn't want to be in the war in the seventh inning, and each pitcher that wanted out when it got rough, and each player didn't want to pinch hit when it got tough. See, that's the thing that was gifted to me. I don't know why, but I know this, that Bob Hauser had the insight to know and felt like I was the one that could direct what he had at this moment and what was coming.
He must have had a sense.
He had to have a sense. I thought he was crazy. I'm not kidding you. I said, the man's got to be totally out of his mind. Never take your eyes off of your pitcher, and never take your eyes off of the opposing pitcher. And both of them will tell you when the party's over.
For the Reds, there was no pennant in '62, and even when Pete Rose arrived in 1963, there wasn't much reason to believe that he alone would bring the team back to the top of the National League.
He was just a local kid that had a chance to make the ball club. He wasn't even a regular, in high school. One until he was about 20 years old that Pete lost him. What nobody realized at the time is the heart that was beating so deep and so hard inside that man. He's one of a kind.
He was a tremendous athlete, a tremendous competitor, and he was really self-made. Because when he broke into the big leagues in 1963, no one could have foreseen the future that Pete had. And we used to say in spring training, the guys would take a vote of the 25-man roster at that time. 24 of the 25 guys say, no, he's not going to make the ball club. The only guy that said, yeah, he thought he had a chance was the guy's job he took, Don Blasingame.
Nobody gave him much of a chance to stay there that year because he was still very young. But he was a determined little guy, and I think he's going to make it.
Rose, of course, made it right away, winning the league's Rookie of the Year award. The 1965 season began with Dick Sisler as the manager of a Reds team that many thought would mount a serious challenge for the pennant. One reason was the addition of Tony Perez, who became the Reds' regular first baseman. Perez hit just 12 homers that year, but his potential was clear to see. Unfortunately, the Reds failed to win again that year, and even traded Frank Robinson to the Orioles after the season. Losing a team leader was tough, and it wasn't until late in 1967 that a new one showed up in the presence of Johnny Bench. Although he was just 20 years old, Bench led by example, and that example was hard to ignore.
I never see nobody come, from the minors and do what he do behind the plate. He took care of everything, he took care of the pitchers, and he had control of the game. He don't look like he was 20 or 21 years old. He's just a guy who came to the big league to stay and be a superstar.
When I got up to Cincinnati, I felt like I had the ability to play. We were on the threshold at that time of developing into what soon became the Big Red Machine. So for me, it was a simple matter of day in and day out being able to play with those great players. Being surrounded by them took a lot of pressure off me, and it made playing every day easy for me.
One thing that wasn't easy for Reds fans was having to say goodbye to Crosley Field in 1970. After 58 memory-filled years, the last game was played on June 24th. For many Cincinnati baseball fans, it was hard to imagine that there would no longer be any Terrace in the outfield, or Seaver Suitsong, or Sun and Moon back in right field. But like most everything else, old Crosley Field fell victim to progress. And on that last night, home plate was taken away by helicopter and transported across town to serve as a link between Cincinnati baseball past, present, and future. That future meant Riverfront Stadium, a multi-purpose structure which opened on June 30th with more than 50,000 fans and the first all-AstroTurf field. It also became part of baseball folklore almost overnight when Pete Rose made all-star history the night of July 14th. But the real attraction during the 1970 season was the Reds themselves. At the beginning of the year, Sparky Anderson was named as the new manager, and Anderson brought with him a fresh new outlook that worked to his and his team's advantage.
I was a naive young man of 35 years old, my first time in the big leagues, and I had so much enthusiasm that I never thought there was such a thing that you could lose.
For a while, it looked like Sparky was clairvoyant as the Reds got off to the greatest start in baseball history, winning 70 of their first 100 games. Offensively, the Reds were without peers in 1970. Not only could they hit, but they had speed too, in the person of Bobby Tolan, who led the league with 57 stolen bases to go along with his .316 average. By now, it was also apparent that the foundation for the Big Red Machine was firmly in place. Sparky Anderson was secure as manager, and then there was Pete Rose, who in the mid-70s would eventually wind up at third base after playing second, left, and right in his early years with the Reds. Third baseman Tony Perez, who had 90 RBIs at the 1970 All-Star break, would ultimately settle in at first, and behind the plate was Johnny Bench, who was in the process of leading the league in both homers and RBIs. Together, those four were the first parts of the Big Red Machine, which by now was well on its way toward winning the 1970 Western Division title. With Bench as the league's MVP, the Reds found themselves in the divisional playoffs against Pittsburgh, where in Game 1, Gary Nolan shut down the Pirates in a 3-0 victory. The Reds also won Game 2, and when Ty Klein scored the go-ahead run in the 8th inning of Game 3, the Reds were on the verge of clinching the pennant.
Swung on a ground ball at Helms. He has it. He'll flip it to May. The Reds win the National League flag. And the celebration breaks loose. And the Reds mob Don Gullett. They are all over it. They pick up Sparky Anderson. Up in the air goes Sparky as the Reds win the National League flag.
The Reds entered the World Series as favorites to defeat the Baltimore Orioles. But the Orioles had lost to the Mets a year earlier and felt they had something to prove. That would soon become evident, but not before a controversial play involving Bernie Carbo set the series tone. With the score tied at 3 in the 6th inning of Game 1, Carbo was called out at the plate, even though the evidence would later indicate otherwise.
There's no way possible he ever tagged it. No way! Get out of there!
But bad calls didn't beat the Reds that year. Brooks Robinson did. Brooks was spectacular, repeatedly robbing the Reds of hit after hit, turning the Fall Classic into his personal showcase. Fittingly, Robinson would be responsible for the last out in the Orioles' 5-game series victory. For the Reds, losing was disappointing, but then again, the 70s were just beginning.
Come 1970, the Big Red Machine was just starting to get rolling. Sparky Anderson was in charge, and the team of the 70s was going places. As a new era began and an old era ended.
We accepted the job, but we weren't going to announce it until spring training. So I had gone all through spring training in 1967, and we were ready to announce that I was going onto the radio. And we had a pitcher, a left-handed pitcher by the name of Ted Davidson, and he was shot in the stomach. So that really left Dave Bristol, the manager, without an experienced left-handed pitcher. I went to Dave and I told him, hey, we'll call this thing off. So So we went to see Mr. Housen, and he made mention of the fact that the Philadelphia Phillies and the Detroit Tigers had shown interest in me. So when that was said, I made my decision real quick. So basically, that's how I got on the radio.
And this is how Joe and his partner sounded in 1967.
There's a long drive into center field. That ball can be caught. It might be out of here. It's off the board. Rose around second. Now he's around third. And he's going to score easy. And we win. We have won the ball game. Yes, sir. My first win on the bike. John Hadley. I'm happy.
Life is so good for so many things that happened to me before 1970, but 1970 set off a bomb. Like I said, if you've never been here in Cincinnati and put on a uniform, you have never been in the major leagues. This is it. This is the ultimate city to ever visit.
Machine. A group of parts acting together to create a force, a motion. Go ahead, look it up in the dictionary. That's what the word machine means. And someday very soon, you'll be able to look not in Webster's, but in the record books of baseball and find this phrase, the Big Red Machine. A group of men in Cincinnati, Ohio, who in the year 1970 acted together to create a force that bombarded the left field fences, smashed center field fences, and obliterated right field fences. The Big Red Machine that just would not stop, could not be stopped by anybody, any team in the National League. And the machine started rolling from the opening gun, the opening day of the season, 1970. Just about set and ready for the 1970 season to get underway. In the National League, the Reds with the traditional opener here before a packed house. Better than 30,000 will be here this afternoon. Cloudy and damp and rather chilly, Joe, as Jim Merritt and Joe Sparmer get set to square off.
Jim, of course, the damp weather kind of worries you, and the temperature, because coming out of Florida, we've been accustomed to the warm weather down there, and you just wonder what effect it might have on the two pitchers this afternoon.
Well, we've had 58 opening days at Crosley Field, Joe. This is the 59th, and this will be the last one. The Reds moving into that new Riverfront Stadium. The Big Red Machine didn't need to warm up. Bang, wham, bang, 3 quick home runs let the world know right off of the bat that this was the name of the Cincinnati game. 2 blasts were belted by Lee May and Bobby Tolan. And then came this shot by a raw rookie named Carbo. Carbo hit .359 at Indianapolis last year and led the American Association. Joe Sparma, right-hander, kicks and throws, swung on a high drive, deep right center field. That ball is well hit, going up. It hit the light tower out in deep right center field. A home run for Bernie Carbo, following a home run to by Lee May, and the Reds take a 3-0 lead. And speaking of rookies, what about Wayne Simpson? Once a control-troubled kid, on April 9th, he reared back and fired this 2-hitter at the Dodgers. 2 out, bottom of the 9th, and young Wayne Simpson is working on a whitewash job in his first major league start. 1 ball, 1 strike. Pitch from Simpson, swung on a high bouncer down the third base line. In and up with it is Perez over to bench at first in time. He got him for the 3rd out to retire the side, and Wayne Simpson shuts out the Los Angeles Dodgers on 2 little singles, one by Sizemore and one by Crawford, in his first major league start. In one day, one memorable day, an old star was hurt and a new star discovered. The great Jim Maloney ruptured the tendon in his left ankle, but 19-year-old Don Gullett discovered the greatness in his left arm. This is the 8th inning, and the Reds are leading 10-2. Big lead, and young Don Gullett stands to be the winning pitcher in this ball game if he can keep them going and getting them out. Here's a strike at the knees, a good fastball, and that one really zipped by, and Costco didn't have a chance to take a good cut. There's a swing and a high fly ball to right field. In and over under it is Pete Rose, waiting, and makes the catch for the 3rd out to retire the side. Gullett gets the Dodgers in the 8th inning. No runs, 1 hit, and 1 man left off. Don Gullett has pitched himself 5 terrific innings in relief here against the Dodgers, only allowed him 3 hits. As we go to the last half of the 8th inning, the Reds 10 and the Dodgers 2.
Very sad ruptured the Achilles tendon in his left ankle. So a real, very serious injury to Jim Maloney.
Well, that's what it takes to make a great machine. One part stops, the others work just a little better, a little harder, taking up the slack. McLaughlin, Merritt, Nolan, Simpson, all the pitchers stayed in their pitching, and the hitters, boy, they did some hitting.
One out Gullett at third base here in the 8th inning, and the Reds are leading by a score of 9-5, and here's Pete Rose. Milt Pappas on the mound for the Braves, the third Atlanta pitcher. 2 balls, 1 strike to Rose. Here's a swing and a high fly, deep center field.
Get out of here, get out of here,
It's out of
get out of
play.
here.
He can't get it, it's over a home run. Pete Rose has just hit a home run over the center field fence, scoring Don Gullett ahead of him to make the score 11-5, and that is home run number 7 in the game. Well, here in Atlanta tonight, the Reds make it 13 wins in their first 17 games, hang on to first place in the Western Division, piling up 17 hits. 13 runs, 17 hits, and 1 error for the Reds, 8 runs, 11 hits, and 1 error for Atlanta, and 10 home runs were hit in this ball game here tonight.
Boy, what a fast getaway this Big Red Machine was making. Their heavy artillery was the talk of the sports world. If Bench didn't bang one out, Tony Perez did.
Tony Perez at the plate. Tony, well, probably one of the hottest hitters in baseball right now. Seems like everything he hits, a line drive. LeMaster checks Tolan at third, lines the pitch. Perez swings, long drive to left field, and that could be number 10. It is. Tony has his 10th home run of the year, 25 RBIs, and the Reds lead by a score of 3-1 here in the 3rd inning.
Tony has tied the Major League mark and set a new National League record for home runs in the first month of the season.
April turned to May, and still the rampaging Red Machine kept turning it on. This time, it was the Pirates who walked the plank 3 times in a 3-game series.
2 men are out. Stargell at first, Sanguillen at third. 9th inning, 11-7. The Reds are leading the Pirates, trying to make it a 3-game sweep. 1 and 2. Swung on a line drive, caught by Lee May at first base. A low line drive that Lee reached down around his knees and speared for the 3rd out, and the Reds win 11-7 to sweep the Pirates. Friday night it was Wayne Simpson and a 6-4 win, and last night Jim McLaughlin hurls a complete game and gets a 7-2 victory. And this afternoon here, the Reds make it 3 straight over the Pirates, 11-7, and now have won 19 of their first 25 games.
It doesn't matter much who else hits. If Rose doesn't hit, the Reds don't win. That's been the story in other years, and Pete Rose hit. But this year, Pete was off to a slow start, and the fans were talking mostly about the other hitters in the Reds lineup. Well, Mr. Rose did sharpen up that fabulous batting touch, and as usual, he did it with style.
Jimmy Stewart at first, and here's Pete Rose. 9th inning, score tied 5-5. Ferguson Jenkins going all the way for the Cubs. The Reds have gotten to him for 10 hits, but he's still out there pitching. 2 balls, 1 strike. And the pitch to Pete swung on a high fly, deep left center.
Get out of here.
And they can't get it. It's up. It's in the bleachers. A home run. Pete Rose has just homered into the left center field bleachers, scoring Stewart ahead of him, and the Reds take the lead 7-5.
Most of the league's red-hot hitters were wearing red stockings, but there was one guy down in Atlanta that nobody could get out. Enter Jim McLaughlin.
And the pitch is swung and a smash to the mound. Off McLaughlin's glove, rolls out for a second. Helps is in and up with it over to May. In time, he got him at first. A close play. Reds 2, the Braves nothing as McLaughlin shuts them out on 5 hits and sets Rico Carty down with none for 4 in the box score and breaks that streak 31 straight. He couldn't make it 32 against the Reds and McLaughlin here today.
Maybe the Reds could handcuff Rico, but nobody in the National League has ever handcuffed hammering Henry Aaron. And on May 17th, Hank Aaron made this hit and history.
Hank Aaron at the plate with Felix Millan on second base, 1 down. First inning, game number 2, today's Twin Bill. Beautiful day for baseball. And a swing and a high bouncer over the mound, charging over Woodward in front of the bag, up with it. Here's his throw to first, not in time. Millan is coming around third, he's headed home. Here's the throw from May to the plate, not in time there. He slides in safe, and Aaron is safe at first, and there's that 3,000th hit. Time is called. They're holding up the game, and here's Hank Aaron at first base, and the crowd is standing to applaud. At time called, he walks over, and here's Stan Musial coming out, Joe, to congratulate him and hand him that ball that he just got his 3,000th hit with.
Here we are in the middle of May, and to hear the fans talk, you would have thought it was October. People were talking pennant and making their World Series plans, and who could blame them? The Big Red Machine was rolling, rolling, rolling. 17 wins in 21 games at home. Rolling on, rolling over the Western Division. 7 games in front already, and more coming. Remember what it was like, don't you? Huh? Nux and I sat up here, and we were afraid to blink our eyes, afraid we'd miss another home run.
Fly ball to deep right. That might be. That's a home run for Lee May.
Out of the ballpark. Jimmy Stewart.
Deep. Back goes Briggs to the wall. It is in the seats, a home run for Bernie Carbo. Fly ball to left. Could be. Yes, sir. It's a homer for Johnny Bench. Fly ball to deep right. That might be. That's a home run for Lee May. Cloninger drives one to center. That's a way back and a home run. Bench hits it to deep left. That might be. It's to the wall and over. Home run by Bench.
With this heavy bombardment, no wonder the month of May ended up 20 wins and only 8 losses, capped by Jim Merritt's mastery of Montreal to become the season's first 10-game winner in the majors.
2 men down, the bases loaded, and the Reds are leading 6-4 here in the 9th inning. 1 strike to go, and the Reds will rack up another victory over the Expos. Here's the windup and the pitch and a swing and a bouncing ball to third. Perez over up with it to his left, makes the peg to first in time to get Sullivan and retire the side. And the Expos threaten in the 9th inning, but they don't score as Wayne Granger sets them down and gets Sullivan on that high bouncer. Tony in and over to his left to make the play, and they leave him loaded in the 9th inning. No runs, a hit and an error, and 3 men left. And the Reds win it 6-4 and sweep the Expos to make it 36 wins in their first 50 ball games.
Boy, what a difference 1 year can make. Last year, it was the amazing Mets. This year, the amazing Reds.
2 out here in the 9th inning. The Reds are leading 10-2, and here's Simpson's first pitch. High and outside, ball 1. Here's a swing and a high pop-up foul off the third baseline. And over under it is Ward. Ward is calling for it. He's there. He makes the catch for the 3rd out. And Simpson sets the Mets down in the 9th inning. The Reds win it 10-2 and sweep the series from the Mets 3 in a row.
31. Count them. 31 opposing pitchers had taken the mound at Crosley Field against our Big Red Machine, and 31 had taken an early shower. Shell-shocked victims of the Big Red Blasters. But finally, on June 21st, the Dodgers' Don Sutton went the full 9 and beat the Reds 9-3. The first opposing pitcher to go the route at Crosley Field. Well, we snapped out of it quickly, like we always snap, with the long bomb. Home runs 100, 101, 102. Helped to cut the Giants down to size, and were hit by Perez, May, and an unsung hero named Hal.
Here's Al McRae. 2 men are out, nobody on base. 3-2, the Reds are leading the last half of the 4th inning. On the mound for the Giants, Mike McCormick. Here's McCormick's next pitch, and a high fly to left field. Down near the corner and backing over Henderson up the turf. Can't get it, it's on the screen, a home run. Al McRae has just lifted a high fly down the left field line and cleared the top of the fence by about 10 feet and was about 5 feet inside the foul pole, and the Reds lead 4-2.
How do you say goodbye to an old friend? There are a lot of ballparks that are just like a lot of other ballparks. Bland, no personality. But nobody could ever say that about Crosley Field. There was more than fond memories within her walls. There was history. An entire era of our national pastime came to a dramatic close on June the 24th.
Johnny Bench's home run is just trying to hit 4-4. And Mr. Marichal is now allowing the Reds 9 hits, and we got a brand new ball game, 4-4, here in the 8th inning. 2-2 to May. On deck, Bernie Carbo. The outfield around the left and deep. Now the pitch. Swung on a high. Get out of here. Get out of field. That ball is up. It's up. It's over the center fence. A home run for Lee May. And the Reds have taken the lead 5-4.
On the way
west side, the Reds and Old Crosley Field were winding down. The Reds played their last game there on June 24th, 1970. The San Francisco Giants 5-4.
Just one of those things. It's been a great place. There's been a lot of memories here. First night game, first baseball game, a lot of good players. And I just hope that we can accomplish the same thing with the new stadium when we move into it.
All of us tonight share a feeling of nostalgia and great joy. Nostalgia because tonight marks the end of an era in which Crosley Field played a significant part in the growth and development of a great city. Farewell, Crosley Field. Hello, Riverfront Stadium. Forward, Cincinnati. And on, Cincinnati Reds to a World Series championship.
How do you feel about it being a historic figure, the last one to hit a home run in Crosley Field?
Well, I tell you, during the time, I forgot all about it. It was the last game, and I got wrapped up. And my main concern was help winning the ball game, and I'm just thrilled to death that the home run won the ball game. But now that I know about it, I'm just another thrill knowing that it was the last home run hit in this ballpark.
Pete, this is one of those particularly strong kind of games for the fans, the last at Crosley Field. Did you know you were going to win it?
Well, we sure were hoping so. It was a tremendous game from the fan standpoint. We beat a good pitcher, probably the highest paid pitcher in baseball, Juan Marichal. He had us 4-3, and two big home runs by Bench and May did it for us. And it was like a World Series victory as far as I'm concerned, because we really wanted this game. Don't ask me why. I don't know if it's because it was the last game at Crosley Field, but maybe it's because it was the Giants and we needed this game because the Dodgers won again tonight, and we're going on the road Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we just needed this game. And it was a great comeback win, as a lot of our victories have been this year.
No doubt about that. Pete, you're going to go to the stadium now. Is the Mighty Red Machine going to continue things?
Well, the first game there should be just as exciting as this game here. We're anticipating a great opening. They got 52,000 seats, so that's going to be a spectacular. Just seeing 52,000 people at one time in Cincinnati, and it's been a long time waiting to come, and it's here, and we just hope we can play good ball there as we have at Crosley Field. We're going to miss Crosley Field. It's a lot of firsts happen to me here at Crosley Field. I'm going to miss it, but I'm anticipating better and bigger things at the new stadium. I sure hope so.
For Queen City sports fans, 1970 was a banner year. A year when the oldest professional baseball team, the Reds, won the National League pennant. And a year when the newest professional football team, the Bengals, posted the best record of any three-year-old in history and won their division title. And both teams did it playing in what is being considered around the country as one of the best, if not the best stadium in the nation, the sparkling new Riverfront Sports Stadium. The new stadium, rushed into shape in time to host baseball's All-Star game back in July, was built at a cost of some $44 million. It sits as a crown on the Queen City's riverfront, hard against the downtown area. Already, economic benefits to the downtown area have been praised. And with the legislation of Sunday sale of alcoholic beverages going into effect soon, and with major restaurants finding it economically feasible to open on Sunday as a result, downtown is going to be livelier than ever.
On the last day of June, the Reds officially opened their spacious new showcase, Riverfront Stadium, baseball's finest facility. With 51,050 fans looking on and the flags flying and all that fanfare, you just knew something had to go wrong. And it did. The Braves spoiled the script 8-2. On July 1st, however, the Reds got revenge and beat Atlanta 9-2 for their first stadium victory. Years from now, people will be guessing which of those big muscle men on the 1970 Reds hit the first home run at Riverfront. Was it Bench, May, Perez? Guess again.
Tommy Helms stepping in. Reed's first pitch is a ball high and outside. Nobody out, Klein at first. Sixth inning, Reds 4, Braves nothing. Now the pitch, swung on a high fly ball. Hey, I can throw it. Cardi back. And it's up. It hit the foul pole screen. A home run. A home run for Tommy Helms. Scoring tie, Klein ahead of him. Well, how about that? Tommy Helms with his first home run of 1970, just above the fence, and it hit the foul pole screen. That's the first home run in the new Riverfront Stadium by a member of the Cincinnati Reds.
The Reds hurlers came through, too. Nobody could believe Wayne Simpson and his sensational rookie record, 13 wins, 1 loss, 10 wins in a row. That's what Wayne was celebrating after the July 4th weekend, and the fireworks didn't stop there. Gary Nolan and Jim Merritt fired back-to-back shutouts at the Padres, and the whole staff pitched more complete games than during the entire 1969 season. 3 straight losses in mid-July would be normal for most teams. For the Red Hot Reds, it was to be their longest losing streak of the season. But everybody came around, and the Reds reeled off 3 straight to keep 10 up on the Dodgers at the All-Star break. Tony Cloninger helped out, Ray Washburn saved one of those games, but most memorable of all was the day little Woody Woodward became the Sultan of SWAT.
Reds batting in the 8th inning now with 1 out and Carbo at first. And here's Woody Woodward. And Ron Reed, who's been staggering along here, holds on to a 10-5 lead. Ron Reed takes a stretch, look over the shoulder, and now the pitch. And a swing and a high fly ball to left field. Back goes Jimmy Hall, way back, and that ball is over the fence, a home run. Woody Woodward has just hit a home run to make it 10-7 now, scoring Carbo ahead of him. And how about that?
They said last year that the Mets were the team of destiny, that they seemed touched by that special magic that makes impossible dreams become possible. So, nobody was surprised that at the All-Star game, with President Nixon looking on and the game's greatest galaxy of stars doing battle, nobody was surprised to see Cincinnati supply the hero as our own Pete Rose came busting into home plate with a winning run.
They have someone on the field, and she is being let off before 51,838.
This is Reds country, Riverfront Stadium, home of the Cincinnati Reds and the 1970 All-Star.
Starting for the American League, having started and playing right field from the Baltimore Orioles. Ralph Robinson steps in. He leads the American League in hitting at .330. The crowd here cheers the arrival of Tony Perez, hitting .356, leading the National League with 29 home runs and 90 RBIs. Hitting .285 with 28 home runs last year. He hit a home run.
On hand to give a hand are the president, his wife, and baseball's commissioner, Bowie Kuhn.
Our radio broadcast tonight traveling around the world of American forces, radio and television service.
The president sets the style for the early part of the game. Pitching dominates. Willie Mays and the rest of the National League big guns are held to only 3 hits through the first 8 innings.
And Mays strikes out, swinging.
American League pitchers Jim Palmer, Sam McDowell, and Jim Perry are devastating.
Swings and misses out of McDowell's fastball. That is what you call smoke death, and then strikes out on a low pitch outside.
Sam McDowell is really on. He personally gets rid of Hank Aaron and Rico Carty, the contingent from the Atlanta Braves.
Ground ball, charging it in Killebrew. McDowell's off, has to make the throw, and has it on a fine play by McDowell, breaking across and actually throwing from foul territory. Staring in, Sam McDowell, ready for the 2-2 pitch to Carty. Ground ball, right back to McDowell, who can leap high because he's a tall man, and he easily throws it out.
Pete Rose, nicknamed Charlie Hustle, runs to first even on a walk. The men on base don't help the National League because the American League always manages to erase any possible threat.
Here, I think you can tell that this is sort of a shakedown cruise to this ballpark. The scoreboard has broken down, and they've got the score on the message board now.
The American League hitters are also silenced early in the game. Tom Seaver and Jim Merritt allow only 2 hits in the first 5 innings.
And as he struck out Aparicio, so he does Frank Robinson on 3 pitches.
The gigantic Frank Howard is easily chopped down by the superb Seaver.
Out and big Frank Howard strikes out, and that's the 4th for Tom Seaver.
As is Minnesota's Harmon Killebrew.
Killebrew, though, strikes out, swinging.
Catcher Johnny Bench closes out the 5th, the last scoreless inning, with his flawless throw to second.
There goes Harper, takes his throw, he gets Hector down there.
Bench's throw is more impressive because it was against the American League's leading base stealer, Tommy Harper. From the top, we can see the benches throw beat Harper. Jim Merritt helped when his pitch went to the outside.
Nobody left.
Then there was Yastrzemski, who was to be voted the game's most valuable player. When Seaver goes after Yaz, Yaz goes after Seaver.
And Jim Merritt, the left hand of Cincinnati, prepared to throw to
Yastrzemski was kept down in the early part of the game by the likes of the inimitable Willie Mays, the institution in the outfield.
Looking as though he has it all the way. Snaps his glove near the wall and takes it.
On defense, Carl Yastrzemski was all over the place. Although a left fielder, he started the game in center field. Then he moved to first base, where he made a sensational leaping tag on Joe Torre.
Drive, Robinson hands up by from the good first third baseman throws. What a play! Yastrzemski went high in the air. He was off the bag and leaped in midair and tied Torre.
There's the
went by. Johnny Ice called Torre out. Joe had something to say, but goes back.
But Yastrzemski was even more impressive at bat. He hit safely 4 out of 6 times and then ran bases like a madman.
Yastrzemski's 4 hits ties an all-star game record. Joe Bedwick.
He was a constant thorn while on base.
Ted Williams in 1946, and the name Carl Yastrzemski.
But he couldn't do it all alone. It was not until the 6th inning that Yastrzemski could help his team score.
The end of 5 innings is scored nothing.
The National League holds the American League until the 6th inning against pitcher Gaylord Perry. Ray Fosse of the Cleveland Indians.
First pitch by Fosse is hit to right field for base hit. Rose is over, picks it up, throws into Menke at second base and cuts it off. Young Ray Fosse of the Cleveland Indians.
Sam McDowell. A sacrifice bunt.
Picked up by Kelly, who will go to first.
Fosse on second.
And for the first time, the American League has somebody as far as second base.
Carl Yastrzemski.
2 out. In the 6th inning, no score. Yastrzemski drills one into short center field. Around third base comes Fosse. The ball is picked up.
Yastrzemski's single sends Fosse home, and the American League leads 1-0. Top of the 7th, Brooks Robinson out.
And lines the ball over the head of Menke in the short right center field. Brooks Robinson has a base hit. Gaston throws it in. On one hop and hooks it down. It's up and hits Menke in the face. Dennis Menke on that hop off that artificial surface hit in the face. Here he throws right up the middle, and it's knocked down by Helson, picked up by Menke. Can't get it, everybody's safe. Terry ready again, trying to come in with a pitch, but something across can't hit. Drills one to center field. Back goes Gaston. Looking up and backhands the ball. Robinson back to third.
Fosse's sacrifice fly scores Robinson, and the American League leads 2-0, top of the 7th. Bud Harrelson of the Mets leads off the bottom of the 7th inning.
Harrelson in his first All-Star game, and the ball tied 4 by Yastrzemski. At first, he can't come up with it.
Harrelson's single sets up the National League's first score. A walk sends Harrelson to second.
There he steers in, looks back. Throws high and hits it. Menke is hit by the
Dennis
pitch, but a tough night he's
moves
had.
Harrelson to
The
third.
bases are loaded, nobody's out, and the National League comes to life with Woody McCovey coming to
McCovey's
bat.
grounder turns into a double play, but Harrelson scores, making it a 2-1 ball game.
And we have a full count again.
Richie Allen strikes out to end the National League second.
With Charlie Hustle, Pete Rose,
The
leading
National
on
League
deck.
sends Bob Gibson in to pitch the top of the 8th. At bat, Carl Yastrzemski.
Yastrzemski's got a great night tonight. Swings again on the first pitch and has his 3rd hit. Round first base. Rolls
Next,
to right
Willie
field,
Horton.
fires on to second.
Come on, Willie, do it. Do it, Willie.
Horton drills one to center field. It's going to drop in there in front of Gaston. Yastrzemski stops the second. The American League is back in business.
2 men on.
Well, up for the first time.
Amos Otis up next.
Kansas City right-handed batter hits the first pitch. It's short right field. Rose is there. Yastrzemski is making a dip to tag. He's going to third base. Rose is
Yastrzemski moves
there.
to third.
Yastrzemski's in ahead of the throw. Going to third base.
Brooks Robinson comes up.
Gibson throws hard this time. Robinson drives Gaston back. Gaston on his horse and be over his head. Not even against the wall. Yastrzemski scores. Horton's on his way around third base.
Yastrzemski and
He'll
Horton
score.
score on Robinson's triple, giving the American League a 4-1 lead going into the 9th inning.
Robinson 2 for 2 and it's 4-1. American League.
Jim, you know you got the knife now. You're going to the 9th inning for sure.
Gibson is touched up. 2-run score.
Gibson then holds the American League, and the National League comes to bat trailing 4-1, bottom of the ninth. Pitching, Jim Catfish Hunt. At bat, Dick Dietz of the Giants.
Placing Johnny Bench. Struck out 3 times. On his throws, ball is hit to center field. Back goes Amos Otis. Back looking up at the wall. And Dick Dietz
Dietz's home run makes the score 4-2. National League still behind. Bud Harrelson up next.
Turn him over right here. Come on, Jim.
And Harrelson follows up, swinging on the first pitch and lines a single to left field. It's 4-2, the American League and the National League, 9th inning.
American League manager Earl Weaver.
And here comes the National League, and here comes Earl Weaver quickly to the mound.
Jim, it's amazing just how quickly a ball game changes its complexion. It looked like there was no problem, 3-run lead.
All right, don't strain. You're going to do it. Everything's all right. We'll get a pair right here. All right? Don't worry about it, huh? We're okay. Guys, just up just a little bit. Now relax. See what you can do. Come on.
At bat, Joe Morgan of the Astros.
Breaking pitch, flies it to right field. Over quickly is Oliva. Picks it up, stopping at second is Harrelson. Then on first and second, and Willie McCovey the batter.
Weaver decides to bring in a left-hander against the next batter, Willie McCovey.
I'm sorry, Jim. You give it a shot, though. That's good. No, that's good. I appreciate that. Fritz Peterson. He'll get him. He ain't worried about him. Mix him up. Let's go.
Fritz Peterson of the Yankees. Willie McCovey of the Giants.
Ground ball. Big hit. That's Johnson. Harrelson comes on to score. It's 4-3.
Harrelson scores. It's 4-3 with a tying run on third. Roberto Clemente up next.
Go ahead, Fritz. That's all right. Appreciate the effort, boy. Oh, yeah. Looking back, looking back and go to second base. All right? We're not going to let the winning run go to second. Right, back to second. Go where you want to throw now. Come on.
So now, 3-2 and 1 out. The tying run at third base. The winning run on at first. And a 4-time National League batting champion,
Roberto Clemente of the Pirates.
Stottlemyre's ready and drive out of the center field. Over comes the center fielder. Otis makes a fine catch. Here comes Morgan. He's got a tie base.
Morgan scores the tying run. It's 4-all, 2 outs, 1 man on, bottom of the ninth. The next man up, Pete Rose, the Cincinnati Red hometown favorite. Batting champion the last 2 years. A champion's champ.
The Cincinnati hitters have not been hitting tonight. Les struck out twice. Gregg struck out 3 times.
The score tied. The game must go into extra innings.
Oh, let's do it now. What do you say? Come on.
Cincinnati, a great baseball town. Really rooting for the National Leaguers here tonight.
Claude Osteen pitches 3 scoreless innings against the American League. Now the bottom of the 12th. Joe Torre at bat. Yastrzemski playing first base. Yastrzemski makes it 2 outs.
That brings up Pete Rose. And with the Cincinnati fans love
Pete
to see
Rose
him
gets another chance.
And it is a very hot, humid, muggy night. Here comes the 2-0 pitch to Rose, and he laces the single up the middle. Otis comes over, goes down to one knee. Rose cuts, so he's going to second base, but Otis hustles his throw into Alomar, and he retreats. So the winning run, Pete Rose, and that's the first Cincinnati player hit. Right throws, ground ball. Aparicio can't get to it. Goes into left field. Pete Rose, the winning run, stops at second base. And right into the stretch. Looking back and throws up the middle. Rose is on his way around. Picked up by Otis. Otis coming to the plate. Throws the throw. He's in. It's all over. The National League wins.
Rose's winning run ends the game. National League 5, American League 4. That winning run presented Rose with a dilemma. he was forced to run over catcher Ray Fosse.
He throws barreled into Ray Fosse, who is slow in getting up.
First of all, he was racing against the excellent fielding of Amos Otis on Jim Hickman's single. From the overhead shot, it is obvious that Fosse was up the line, blocking the plate.
Trying to block the plate. The ball wasn't there yet, and Rose just rolled her
If we
shoulder.
freeze that last shot, we can clearly see Rose's dilemma. The ball, the plate, and Ray Fosse. In slow motion, we can see Rose's first intention was to slide. But he realized there was only one way to score, to win the game. The pro has to win, but win or lose, there's no place to hide.
And Fosse is being led away, but the National League is now on its 8th in a row. The line drive single of the Chicago Cubs, Jim Hickman, scores Cincinnati's Pete Rose. The final score, the National League 5, the American League 4.
If I'm there a tenth of a second slower, he knocks me on my ass. And you're probably interviewing Ray Fosse today instead of me. That's just the advantage I had that night. And it just happened to be a game played in Cincinnati, Ohio, where they play today on Pete Rose Way. And they got a big-ass statue of me out in front of the damn ballpark. So I had to be safe. Rich, I couldn't be out.
And right into the stretch. Looking back and throws up the middle. Rose is on his way around. Picked up by Otis. Rose is coming to the plate. Throws the throw. He's in. It's all over. The National League wins.
Ray Fosse was a good young player at the time, and he's playing in the Buckeye State where I played all those years. But I had to do what I had to do because my dad was in the stands. If I just slide in and let him tag me, we might be still playing that damn game.
Up the middle. Rose is on his way around. Picked up by Otis. Rose is coming to the plate. Throws the throw. He's in. It's all over. The National League wins. He throws barreled into Ray Fosse, who is slow in getting up. Trying to block the plate. The ball wasn't there yet, and Rose just rolled her shoulder into it. And Fosse is being led away. But the National League is now on its 8th in a row. The line drive single of the Chicago Cubs, Jim Hickman, scores Cincinnati's Pete Rose. The final score, the National League 5, the American League 4.
The second half of the season began with the Reds traveling to Pittsburgh for the Pirates' first game in their new Three Rivers Stadium. And Tony Perez and the Reds spoiled the occasion for the Bucs.
Tony Perez at the plate to count a ball and a strike. Ellis checks Nolan at second base, delivers a fastball. Swung on, long, field, it could be, and there it goes. Perez, 30th home run of the year, and the Reds lead 2-1.
Just 2 days later, Jim Merritt stopped the Pirates again, 3-1, to become the first 15-game winner in baseball. But winning games isn't all there is to pitching. Ask Wayne Granger, who is just great at saving games. On July 24th, he saved game number 22 for Gary Nolan as the Reds routed the Redbirds 4-0. How do you pick highlights from a year like Johnny Bench had? Maybe one such day was the 26th of July.
All right, Jim, it'll be Johnny Bench to lead off the 5th inning. John has had 2 home runs already in the ball game. In the first inning with 2 on, his 31st home run of the year. He hits number 32 in the second inning with 1 on. He's leading off the 5th. Steve Carlton on the mound. His first pitch to Bench is low and inside a ball. Johnny with 32 home runs, and here he is, 1 ball, no strikes with Carlton. Carlton winds a curveball, low and inside. It's 2-0. Carlton ready with his 3-1 pitch. A fastball, swung on, long drive, left field. Going back, he's not going to get to that one. It lands in the 4th row of the greens. Bench's 3rd home run of the game. John now with 33 home runs on the year. And, well, what can you say about young Johnny Bench?
So the Reds defeat the Cardinals here this afternoon in a wild and woolly one, 12-5. And look at the line score for Johnny Bench. 3 home runs, a single, 4 for 5 on the day, and 7 runs batted in. 7 of those 12 scored by the Reds knocked across for Johnny Bench. Homers in the first, second, and fifth, and the Reds whopped the Cardinals 12-5. On August 1st, the Reds set their all-time attendance mark. 1,131,076 fans had come to cheer on the Big Red Machine, which responded this day with a 6-4 win over the Cubs. And Bobby Tolan waited until the 11th inning of the next game to personally beat the Cubs again. 2 men out, Klein at second, Rose at first, and Pizarro completing his warm-up tosses to work to Bobby Tolan. The Reds 3 and the Cubs 3. And boy, this crowd here this afternoon loves it. The 11th inning, extra innings for the Cincinnati Reds. This is the 6th time the Reds have played overtime, and they've won 4 of their first 5 extra inning games. And here's Bobby stepping in. Pizarro, the 3rd Cubs pitcher, following Holtzman and Jim Colborn. And now here's Pizarro, veteran left-hander. First pitch to Bobby is a ball inside. Rose at first, Klein at second, and 2 down in the bottom half of the 11th inning. 3-3. Boy, what a ball game. These Cubs are tough. Now the pitch, a swing, and a low line drive in center field, and Pepitone can't get it. It comes in there for him. And around third to score comes Tommy Klein, and the Reds win 4-3. The Reds beat the Cubs 4-3. Bobby Tolan coming through against a left-hander as he's done so many times. Gets a clean hit to center field that Pepitone couldn't get to, and the Reds win 4-3 in 11 innings over the Cubs. When did you begin to think the Reds were in? Well, for me, I guess it was after the 4-game series with the Dodgers in early August out on the coast. If they swept us, they were back in the race. But when we got a split, the headlines in Los Angeles read, Dodgers magic number, now 1971. I guess that's when I began to believe the 1970 Reds were going all the way to the flag. With the Dodgers dead and buried, the question was not whether the Reds would conquer the West, but when they would do it. The only thing that could possibly stop them now was injuries. The Big Red Machine may be a lot of things, but they're not superstitious. And on the 13th day of August, Bench and May gave that fact some dramatic proof. Listen. 297 average. He can do it all. The pitch, he swings, fly ball to left. Could be. Yes, sir. It's a homer for Johnny Bench. And another barrel of marathon, and number 40 for John. And the boys line up in the dugout to greet him. A home run for Johnny Bench. Scores Perez ahead of him, and the Reds take the lead 2-1. It's nobody out. Here's Lee May. Lee May waiting for the 1-1. Here it is. Change up is outside. 2 balls a strike. Sadecki works. Fly ball to deep right. That might be. That's a home run for Lee May. That's 25 for Lee and 55 gallons of Super M. Speaking of superstitions, don't believe that old tale about pitchers not knowing how to hit. Bunning ready to pitch to Cloninger, whom he struck out twice. Gets this one outside, ball 1. Tony's been called out once, and he's gone down swinging once. Johnny Bench now has 118 runs batted in. He's batted in all 3 today. Cloninger drives one to center. That's a way back and a home run. Oh, no, hit the top of the fence and bounced back. No, it didn't either. It hit the seats out there. Over the top of the fence. A home run. Great day in the morning. Did Tony clobber that pitch? Maybe no victory is quite as sweet as victory over the World Championship. 9th inning, 2-1 Mets. Ryan sets pitches. Bench lines one down the right field line toward the corner. Sloboda cannot get it. Fair ball up against the fence for the hit. It's Tolan around third. Sloboda's throw toward the plate.
good machine running very long without spare parts. And that was the Reds' secret this year.
See with his 0-2 pitch. Swung on, fly ball, deep to right. Going back, Swoboda, looking up, out of the ballpark. Jimmy Stewart, he hits his first home run of the year. The Reds go out in front, 7-5. How about that? Jimmy Stewart, a pinch hit home run, and the Reds lead by a score of 7-5.
If there's one guy the girls love and the pitchers hate, it's Bernie Carbo.
Bunning, sets, pitches. Slow curve, and it's hit to left. Deep. Back goes Briggs. To the wall. It is in the seats, a home run for Bernie Carbo. Bernie Carbo hits one to the opposite field. Number 21, scoring bench and May ahead of him. And the Reds take a lead now of 6-2. And here's Carbo crossing the plate, collecting another barrel of Marathon for Bernie. 2 home runs in the inning. It's now 6-2 Reds. And coming up, Tommy Helm.
Ask Sparky Anderson what he does when he wants a game saved. He picks up the phone and calls for Granger, who saved 30 games through August.
Wayne walked partway to the plate to get the ball back from bench, said something to Shag Crawford, and turns and walks back to the hill. He's 3-0 to Staley with Brand at third base. McCoy at first. Wayne gets his sign. Here's his pitch. Strike call. He got it right over. 3-1. You have to figure Staley to be taking in that situation. Now it's 3-1. Wayne gets his sign, sets, delivers. Swung on a ground ball. Lee May at first, up with it. He'll make the play himself and end the game. And the Reds win by a score of 4-3 in 11 innings.
September was a tune-up month for the Big Red Machine. With a big lead in the West, Sparky Anderson started sharpening the team for the playoffs to come. As if the Dodgers weren't far enough out of it, along came a kid named Wilcox.
Wilcox was a second-round draft choice of the Reds in the regular phase in June of 1968. And here, just a little over 2 years after he was drafted, he's pitching in the major leagues. As the sign and throws and Haller, it's a slow bouncer toward Helms, who is in front of it, and throws him out. And that ends the game. And young Mr. Wilcox has shut out the Los Angeles Dodgers 6-0. One fine performance. In the ninth, no runs and 1 hit for L.A. with 1 man left, and the Reds win 6-0.
In his entire career, Lee May hit 1 grand slam. Yet this year, alone, he hit 3.
Here's Lee May. 1 out and runners at first, second, and third. Chance for a big first inning right here. Wind up by Moeller in the pitch. Line drive deep left, way back, up. It is in the seats, a home run, I believe. It is a grand slam for Lee May. Lee May hit the first pitch from Moeller, a line shot into the left center field bleachers. Line drive up over Moeller's head. A grand slam for Lee May. And the Reds lead 5-0. Wow. Chatting with Lee May in the dugout. Lee, congratulations on a big home run.
Thank you very much, Jim.
I know one thing, we've talked about it all along with Bench and Perez batting ahead of you this year. They have 130 and 120 some odd runs batted in, and here you have now 83, and I think that's an amazing total considering the fact you've been hitting behind those 2 guys.
Yes, and after the game, I thanked Johnny and Perez for leaving men on base for a change.
At least you had something to swat at, didn't you?
Right.
I didn't know whether the ball was going to clear the fence or not, Lee. It looked like it was just over the top of the fence. You hit it so hard, but so low.
Right, I didn't think it was going to make it either because I saw a motor going back to the wall, and he leaped, and I thought it was going to be off the top of the wall, but I saw that he managed to get up under the bother some kind of way, and I was proud of that.
This was it, the battle between the Pirates of the East and the Reds of the West. At stake, the National League pennant for 1970. Both clubs were hungry for it. The Reds hadn't won it in 9 years. The Pirates hadn't won it in 10. Tension, that's the word to describe this meeting and the way to describe the first 9 innings of that opening game in Pittsburgh as Doc Ellis and Gary Nolan threw bullets. And it all came down to who would break it open in the 10th.
A 1-2 pitch. Fine swings, hits it into right center field. It might be extra bases it is. Klein on his way to second. He could get 3. He's around second. On his way to third, and he's in there. On a close play, a good throw to Rich Hebner, but Ty just didn't get there.
Then with 2 out and Klein about to die on third, Mr. Reliable stepped up.
Pete Rose at the plate, the Pirate infield pulls in. Rose is 1 for 4. First pitch outside a ball. Ty Klein, a pinch triple. The Reds have their first real good opportunity to go out in front in this ball game. 1-0 pitch. Rose swings, grounds it into right field, and the Reds lead 1-0.
After Bench was walked intentionally, the Bucks tried to get Lee May and couldn't do it.
0-2 the count now to Lee May. The 0-2 pitch. Swung on, line fair along the left field line. Rose will score. On his way to third is Bench. The ball's by Jeter. Bench will score easily, and May at second base with a double. The Reds lead 3-0.
So that was game 1, and the Reds won it 3-0. And I talked to Ty Klein after the game.
Ty, I have to think that you gained a lot of respect from a lot of baseball fans everywhere for that big hit you came up with in the 10th inning to start us off to the victory.
Well, I sure hope so, Jim. The bench was really excited the whole game. Everybody was up and chattering on each play, and everybody was really excited. In fact, when balls were hit to our outfielders and infielders, everybody would start cheering, and there was a tremendous amount of excitement on the bench, and all the fellas have to be given a great deal of credit for everything that they've done. We pulled together all year. We've been a real fine unit, and everybody's done their job, and it's just been a tremendous year, and we just hope things will continue, and we'll have a tremendous series.
It's game 2, and if ever one man dominated one game more than Bobby Tolan did this day in Pittsburgh, well, I've never seen it. Listen.
pitch. Swung on, a bouncer over the mound and into center field, a base hit. Tolan makes the turn at first and holds as Alou fields the ball in a hurry. The pitch, Tolan goes and a pitch out, but Bobby is there. The ball's into right center field. Tolan could score. He's to third, and Gramus is holding him up. And the throw gets by Sanguin and bounces off Walker's leg behind the plate, but Tolan is held at third base. The stretch of the pitch. Going inside and bounces away from Sanguin, and Tolan scores 2-1 pitch. Swung on and hits deep to center field. Matty Alou chasing. Going back, he looks up. Bye-bye baseball, and Bobby Tolan hits the first home run of the series, and the Reds lead 2-0.
Tolan hits a bouncer over the mound, up the middle, into center, and another hit for Tolan. His third of the day. Big turn, puts on the brakes as Alou dared him to try, and Bobby thought better of it. Tolan leads the pitch. Perez, it's a smash fair by the third base bag down the line in the corner. Tolan digging for third in the corner. That was his strike. Tolan's going to try to score. He stops. Now the throw to the plate, and he scores.
Guess who was my star of the game?
Bobby, have you hit a ball any harder than the one you hit in the fifth inning?
I don't think so, Jim. I know I hit the ball good, but like I said, this is a big ballpark. I didn't know if the ball was going to go out or not until I got to first base. Saw Matty Alou about 15, 20 feet from the fence, like he knew it was gone, and I was real pleased about it.
Yes, he had to be. Bobby, what are the chances of the Pirates now? Would you kind of hate to be over in that dugout, wouldn't you?
This is true. I know it's tough for them to come over to our ballpark, and I expect them to take 3 straight games from us. So I don't think any team in the National League has come over there and take 3 straight from us this year, and it's going to be tough for them. And all I know, Jim, is I like our situation.
You kind of like it.
I love it.
Reds' Bobby Tolan makes it a one-man show. After getting a hit, he steals second, then takes third when the throw gets away, and scores the first run on a wild pitch. In the fifth, Tolan again with one swish of the bat, a home run off Luke Walker. Tolan is undisturbed by any left-handed slats, the base-stealing king of the majors, who showed he could hit with power.
Well, 2 down, 1 to go, and home to Cincinnati we go to try and win it. In this one, the Pirates got 1 run in the first, their first and only lead in the 3-game series. But how brief it was with the Big Red Machine. They brought out their back-to-back home run guns.
Next pitch to Perez, 1-2, is swung on, hit deep to left, might be. Stargell looks at it, it's out of here. Home run. Tony Perez collects 55 gallons of Super M for a home run, the second in the series for the Reds. And if you count all of them, that's Tony's 41st in 1970. And Bench hits it to deep left. That might be. It's to the wall and over. Home run by Bench. Back-to-back home runs by Tony Perez and Johnny Bench puts the Reds ahead 2-1.
The Bucks tied it, and it stood 2-2 until Klein walked and Rose singled in the 8th to set the stage for the biggest base hit in Cincinnati history.
The count, 2 strikes to Tolan. Now the stretch. Here's the pitch. Sidearm, ground ball into left field, a hit. There's Klein around third, up with the ball, Stargell. Here comes the throw, and he is safe at home. The Reds lead 3-2.
That was the tiebreaker, and now it was Cincy, bar the Bucks. It all fell on the broad shoulders and strong left arm of a 19-year-old kid who wasn't a kid anymore.
19-year-old Don Gullett is called in from the bullpen.
There are 2 men out with Clemente on third and the batter Al Oliver, pitching to Oliver. Swung on a ground ball at Helms. He has it. He'll flip it to May. The Reds win the National League flag. And the celebration breaks loose. A hard ground ball at Helms. He raced over, underhanded it to May, and the Reds mob Don Gullett. They are all over him. They pick up Sparky Anderson. Up in the air goes Sparky on the shoulders of the Reds players as the Reds win the National League flag. They're mobbing each other in front of the Reds dugout. The crowd very orderly and staying back
as the Reds wrap up the National League pennant. As Don Gullett, Wayne Granger do the job in the ninth inning, they beat the Pirates 3-2.
We're chatting with Johnny Bench in the dugout when he got a little champagne, didn't you, John?
All over my body. Well, sweet it is.
I hope that microphone doesn't short out in your hand, John.
I got them a while ago while they were on TV.
And they got you right back, huh?
Yeah.
John, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you. Let me get the champagne out of my eyes.
Can you see?
I hope. If I'm able to see tomorrow. I love it. It's beautiful. They're wasting it, though. I'd like to taste it.
Tell him just wait a little while there. You can taste a little of it in a few minutes.
The Reds win the pennant, the Reds win the pennant. That's the cry that kept the Queen City up late that night. The players went wild. The Big Red Machine had done it. Yes, finally put together that special combination of raw power, defense, and pitching balance to roll over the National League in 1970. Maybe that's where we should leave the 1970 season, on a high note, because that's what it was. The Big Red Machine, magnificent for 6 months, was just unlucky enough to run into another machine, a vacuum cleaner named Brooks Robinson. Sure, our Reds lost the series, but from Bob Howsam down to the Bat Boy, there was no regret, no shame, just pride in winning the pennant, and lots of confidence in this great young team in the future.
A beautiful day in Cincinnati today for the All-Star Game. Crosley Field here is jammed to capacity. There's customers standing all around in the aisles and every place available. Dick Flay of Cincinnati, of radio station WSAI, is very enthusiastic about these Cincinnati Reds. He's from Cincinnati. Can give you a small story on this beautiful ballpark this afternoon, and of course the history of the game and a lot of other things that he wants to talk to you about. This park was built in 1912. The first ball game was played in it on opening day 1912. The terrace was put in the Cincinnati ballpark by groundskeeper Matty Schwab during the season of 1937. In those days, they used to stretch the rope, and it was not satisfactory. The crowd out here at Crosley Field was so great that they wanted a place to sit down. They didn't like the idea of being held back by a rope. They probably remember the night that the St. Louis Cardinals and the Reds played a night game here, where the crowd was right around the home plate crowd, just as though you would see a ball game on an amateur dime. Out there, you see Al Schacht at the present time putting on the show for them. The fans, as you look at the circle around the home plate, were right around the very circle, which is no more than 20 feet in diameter. And so they thought the idea of the terrace seat would help a great deal. The setting is absolutely perfect today. The weatherman must be given a real round of cheers because he's given us one of the most glorious days we've ever had. We're all ready to go now, and I know that you join with me in saying, may the best team win. Nobody on and nobody out. It's the first half of the first inning of the All-Star game. Now Vandermeer starts that sweeping windup again. It's a fly ball into center field. The center fielder is going back out. He's going up the incline. He caught it. Out ran up the incline in center field for a long drive of 370 feet. There's a ball that's too low that time with a lot of stuff on it, and the count is 2-2. Vandermeer shot his fist into his glove as though he figured it should have been called a strike. The count is 2-2 now on Fox, the first baseman of the Boston Red Sox. Vandermeer is starting his windup again. Here's the next pitch. It's a swing and he struck him out. Fox swung that time with a fastball and struck out. He went all the way around trying to give that ball a ride and missed it. That's the strikeout of Fox. Vandermeer, you know, leads the league pitchers in strikeouts. The pitch to Lombardi hits out to left field for a base hit. And Mellott comes in to score from third base as Ernie Lombardi singles sharply into left field. Evidently, these American leaguers had heard about Lombardi, or they take their position just as the National Leaguers do. When Lombardi's at bat, the infield ordinarily moves out towards the outfield. Cole is getting a sign again from Bill Dickey. He's all ready. Here's the next pitch. It's a fastball inside a hit. He hits the center field. A shot single right through the box. McCormick places one right through the box on the ground. They single to center field. That is hit number 5 for the National League. McCormick's first hit. Now the next man to come up is the shortstop, DeRocher. He's facing Grove now with the man on first. One down the third base line. Fox is coming in fast. He's up with it. There's the throw. Whoop! He threw the ball away. There was nobody coming first base, and the party is coming all the way around the third. DeRocher is going all the way. McCormick comes all the way to the plate, and DeRocher runs the third. Now goes the plate, and DeRocher scores. 2 more runs are in for the National League, and they lead 4-0 on that bunt. The man on first base, McCormick, went all the way around and scored, and DeRocher scored. We had a grand time out here in Cincinnati. Like you said, Bob won't get to see this for some time. Since 1919, this was the first time that Cincinnati took on a World Series attitude. They liked it. They'll want more of it. It means a great deal to Cincinnati to have this All-Star game. And to you good people out New York way, we wish you the same kind of good weather for the next year's All-Star game in 1939. We hope that you have an enthusiastic crowd as we had here today. Hello, baseball fans. This is Wade Hoyt. At Crosley Field in Cincinnati, Ohio.
It's an unusual ballpark, and it's a good ballpark for hitters. Hitters being able to hit straight away in the ballpark and take advantage of the short center field fence.
Cincinnati's Crosley Field jammed to the rafters for the 7th and final game of the series with Bobo Newsom pitching for Detroit, Paul Derringer on the hill for the Red Legs.
Well, we've had 58 opening days at Crosley Field, Joe. This is the 59th, and this will be the last one.
It's a beautiful night for baseball here in Cincinnati. The temperature today right around 80 degrees. Still a small amount of twilight in the sky. And it's baseball here at Crosley Field.
Yes, indeed. Today's game is to be played right here at Crosley Field, which has been the home of the Cincinnati Reds for as long as the oldest citizen can remember. The field itself here at Crosley has undergone various changes.
At one time, the batters batted toward the home plate instead of away from it. And speaking of the home plate, it was once located some 20 to 30 feet directly to the rear of its present site. It has been gradually moved forward as the necessity for more seating capacity has increased. There have been but 3 modern World Series played here. This is the 4th. The disastrous World Series of 1919, then the second one against the Yankees in 1939 with unfortunate results for Cincinnati, and the third one, the 1940 series, when the Reds defeated the Detroit Tigers in 7 games. A series which, by the way, saw Freddie Hutchinson, the present Cincinnati manager, pitching for Detroit. So 21 years have passed since Crosley Field has been gaily dressed. 21 years since pennant fever gripped this Ohio River City. 21 years of pennant famine. And now the Queen City, as Cincinnati is called, has responded to their National League champions with an intensity which beggars description.
Come on in, Sis, and tell us all about it. Thank you, Pee Wee, and I can't keep from marking how well you are talking. And so long as you've talked today, I begin to think there for a minute I wasn't even going to get on today. Well, Dave, I had a lot of practice last week. I got to do 6 innings and 6 innings. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was a big man last week. I don't see no reason why you shouldn't do 6 today, partner.
The 1961 World Series has arrived in Cincinnati, and as a matter of fact, it arrived by car, plane, railroad, and bus in sections. The vanguard arrived from New York following Thursday's game. Fans and press and radio and TV, magazine and movies and news representatives have been arriving from home and abroad ever since. This afternoon here as the World Series opened for the first time in 21 years, it is just a gorgeous day, a really tremendous day. And not a cloud in the sky, warm, delightful, and the city is very, very excited.
9th inning, 2 down. Here's the stretch. Now the pitch. Shot him out! Triple-Oney holds the no-hitter. He's robbed by his teammates. The bench comes out. Photographers on the field. Jim Maloney holds a no-hitter. His 3rd. And the crowd is emptying out. Maloney is being lifted up to his teammates' shoulders. They're carrying him off the field as Maloney pitches a no-hitter here at Crosley Field. Strikes out 13 along the way, including the last man to face him.
As Drysdale is going again, Robinson home the ball. A home run for Robinson.
Around second, now he's around third, and he's going to score easy, and we win. We have won the ball game. Yes, sir. My first win on the bike. John Happy, I'm happy.
On a break. Ground ball to the right side. Base hit. Harper will get the 3rd. And all now you can see how Crosley got kickoff at second base. One here. Harper going to the plate. The throw is high. He's got it. Harper got a great stride and scores. This time, the Reds pull it on the Dodgers.
The end of 3 innings. No runs, 1 hit, no errors for Cincinnati. No runs, no hits, no errors for the Yankees.
Reds winning 7-6 in the first game. Fox trying to pitch out of the jam now for Philadelphia. Protect that 4-run lead facing Johnny Edwards, left-handed batting catcher. Starts his double windup. And here it is. Hit to the shortstop under his glove and out into left field for a base hit. Shamsky is hauled. Here's Cardenas coming to third. 2 runs have scored as Helms is hauled. And it's a 6-4 ball game.
The Reds have tied the all-time National League record for playing a game without scoring. It was 20 innings, tying Pittsburgh and Boston of 1918. Edwards swings, misses, he struck him out, and that breaks up the ball game. Lindsey gets his 3rd strikeout, and he picks up the victory too. The Reds lose it in 21 innings to the Giants, 1-0.
Terry Fox, double wind up in the pitch, and a swing and a fly ball hit to deep right center field. Back up the terrace goes Brandt. It's up against the wall for extra bases. Benson goes to second. The ball bounces away from Brandt. Benson digging for 3rd. Here comes the throw. He slides face with a triple. Theta Benson unloads his 2nd triple of the night.
Myers sends a long fly to center field. Ripple hugging 3rd until after the catch. Then down he comes for the run that clinches the ball game for the Reds 2-1, and Cincinnati has won its first World Series in 21 years. Bucky Walters, Pilot McKechnie, and lanky Paul Derringer taking the bows for the new world champs who brought the National League its first series crown since 1934.
That's the story for 3 full innings.